Hey everybody, this is Death by D4, and welcome to my guide on all of the new spells presented in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There's a lot to go over, so be sure to subscribe and let's dive right on in. First off, let's just get one thing out of the way. Of all the spells that appear in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, Booming Blade, Green Flame Blade, Lightning Lure, Sword Burst, and Blade of Disaster were all reprinted from other 5th edition books. Concerning any changes that were made to them, all 4 of these cantrips had their ranges adjusted, largely to prevent very specific exploits with them, and the 9th level spell Blade of Disaster was made available to both sorcerers and warlocks. Overall, nothing crazy, but these are still nice changes to see, so let's just move right along. Up next we've got Mind Sliver, which is an enchantment cantrip. As an action, you target a creature within 60 feet and force it to succeed on an intelligence saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d6 psychic damage and must subtract 1d4 from its next saving throw made before the end of your next turn. Power of this cantrip also increases as you level up, capping out at 4d6. Wow! I'm not gonna lie, but if this cantrip had come out back when I was making my top 5 damaging cantrips video, then it would have definitely made it on there. After all, not only does it deal a fairly reasonable amount of psychic damage, but the fact that it also debuffs your target's next saving throw is just absurdly useful. After all, not only can you allow your allies to take advantage of this debuff, but a sorcerer with the Quicken Spell meta magic feature could also throw out a spell alongside of it, allowing you to take full advantage of the debuff in a single turn. Seriously, just wow! What an absolutely amazing cantrip, and one that I would highly recommend taking whenever possible. Next up, we've got Tasha's Caustic Brew, which is a first level evocation spell. As an action, while you maintain concentration on this spell, you target all creatures within a 30-foot line and force them to succeed on a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is then covered in caustic acid for up to 1 minute, and takes 2d4 acid at the start of each of their turns, ending only if the spell ends, or until the creature uses its action to scrape the acid off of itself. The spell's power also increases as you upcast it, dealing an additional 2d4 acid damage per the spell slot's level. Wow! Honestly, this is pretty remarkable for a first level spell. After all, not only can you target multiple creatures with it, but it allows you to inflict enemies with a lasting damage over time effect, and that could really start to add up over the course of multiple rounds. Sure, a creature could just end the effect immediately if they wanted to, but that still does require them to use their action in order to do this, meaning that they're very likely to end up doing absolutely nothing on their turn. You know, that is unless they decide to just walk up to you and just cave your face in. So, yeah, just be sure to watch out for that one. All in all, not what I would consider to be the strongest first level spell out there, but certainly a nice one to have that can offer you a rather substantial damaging effect if utilized correctly. Next up, we've got a whole bunch of new summoning spells. Summon Beast, a 2nd level conjuration spell. Summon Fae, a 3rd level conjuration spell. Summon Shadow Spawn, a 3rd level conjuration spell. Summon Undead, a 3rd level necromancy spell. Summon Aberration, a 4th level conjuration spell. Summon Construct, a 4th level conjuration spell. Summon Elemental, a 4th level conjuration spell. Summon Celestial, a 5th level conjuration spell. And finally, Summon Fiend, a 6th level conjuration spell. As an action, while you maintain concentration on this spell, you can summon forth a spirited ally in the form of your choosing for up to 1 hour. The spirit takes its turn immediately after yours during combat, and follows any verbal commands that you give it, otherwise taking the dodge action and moving away from danger whenever possible. Within each spell, there is a wide variety of forms that your spirit can take on, each with their own unique subset of abilities. Oh, and these spells also increase in power as you upcast them, increasing your summon's armor class and hit point total with every spell slot level, and increasing its number of attacks made on a turn for every 2 spell slot levels. Phew, alright. So in general, though none of these spells are all that crazy overall, the simple fact that you can now very easily summon a variety of companions for yourself shouldn't be understated, as this is just a whole lot easier to manage than your typical summoning spells. Not only that, but the options made available to you across all of these spells are pretty good, and thankfully, your summon's damage output is derived from your spellcasting modifier, allowing your summons to actually scale in power alongside with you as you level up. However, do keep in mind that each of these spells do require a unique and costly material component in order to be cast. That said, the component is not thankfully consumed during the casting, so once you've got it, you're pretty much set. All in all, a really awesome array of new summoning spells to choose from in general. So if the idea of playing as a summoner character is of interest to you, then definitely consider taking a look through these spells when creating your character. Next up, we've got Tasha's Mind Whip, which is a 2nd level enchantment spell. As an action, you can target a creature within 90 feet and force it to succeed on an intelligence saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 3d6 psychic damage, can't use its reaction till the end of its next turn, and can only move, use an action, or a bonus action during its next turn, taking half damage and suffering none of these effects on a successful save. The number of creatures that you can target with a spell increases as you upcast it, gaining 1 additional creature within 30 feet of the target per spell slot's level. Damn. Now this is one heck of a debilitating spell. Sure, its damage output isn't all that great, and the fact that it doesn't get any stronger as you upcast it isn't great either. However, being able to just lock out most of your enemy's abilities for an entire round is just so good for you. Heck, using this could be all that you need in order to turn the tides of combat back against your enemies, or even to escape from them if the going gets too rough. Either way, if battlefield control is something that interests you, then definitely consider taking this spell for yourself, as you'll likely be very glad that you did at some point in the future. Next up, we've got Intellect Fortress, which is a 3rd level abjuration spell. As an action, while you maintain concentration on this spell, you can target a creature within 30 feet and grant it resistance to psychic damage, and advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. The number of creatures that you can target with the spell increases as you upcast it, gaining an additional 1 creature within 30 feet of you per the spell slot's level. Definitely a really niche spell to be had. However, it can also offer you and your allies quite a lot of resistance to some really nasty effects. Not to mention the fact that this is basically a must-have spell if you plan on going up against a bunch of mind flayers, or just aberrations in general, I guess, as some of their most potent magical abilities can all be massively mitigated by the protection granted by this one spell. So if that sounds like something that you're looking for, then be sure to pick up this spell for yourself as soon as possible. Up next, we've got Spirit Shroud, which is a 3rd level necromancy spell. As a bonus action, while you maintain concentration on this spell, you deal an additional 1d8's worth of radiant, necrotic, or cold damage with an attack that you land against a creature within 10 feet of you. Also, any creature that you damage in this way cannot regain hit points until the start of your next turn. And any creature that you can see that starts its turn within 10 feet of you has its speed reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. The spell's power also increases as you upcast it, dealing an additional 1d8's worth of damage for every 2 spell slots worth of levels. Wow! I'm not gonna lie, but this is a really awesome new spell in general. Though not necessarily the most useful thing for a traditional spellcaster, your melee-focused spellcasters are likely going to get a whole lot of mileage out of it. After all, not only does the spell attack add additional damage for you, but it also slows down your enemies within your reach, making it a whole lot easier for you to actually be able to keep your enemies in check. Definitely a super useful spell in general, and one that I'd argue is a must-have for anybody interested in playing as a frontlining spellcaster. Next up, we got Tasha's Otherworldly Guise, which is a 6th level transmutation spell. As a bonus action, while you maintain concentration on this spell, you transform yourself into an incarnation of the upper or lower planes, and gain a variety of new bonuses, including a variety of damage and condition immunities, a flying speed of 40 feet, a +2 bonus to your AC, your weapon attacks become magical for the purposes of overcoming damage resistances to non-magical attacks, you can now use your spellcasting modifier when making weapon attacks, and you can attack a minimum of 2 times whenever you take the attack action. I'm not gonna lie, but the sheer amount of style packed behind the spell is just simply incredible, as being able to transform yourself into either an angelic or fiendish alter ego is just insanely cool. That said, it's also kinda hard to say if the spell's entirely worth your while in general, as it does require a 6th level spell slot, and a number of the bonuses that it can provide for you won't necessarily be of much use to a traditional spellcaster. That said, if you happen to be a martial or melee spellcaster, then you'll probably get a whole lot more mileage out of it, assuming that you're able to maintain concentration of it in the middle of combat. So overall, I'd have to say this is a pretty awesome spell in general, just one that I recommend taking careful consideration of when you're able to select it. And finally, as our last new spell in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, we've got Dream of the Blue Veil, which is a 7th level conjuration spell. After spending 10 minutes to cast this spell, you and up to 8 willing creatures within 20 feet then fall unconscious for 6 hours. While unconscious in this way, you and these creatures then begin to experience visions of another world. And once the spell is expired, you and all of them are then fully transported into the world of your visions. However, you must have a magic item or creature originating from your destination world in order to cast the spell, and if you take any damage before the spell is concluded, then the transportation fails and you are turned back to your original world. Alright, so, I'm not gonna lie, but I just absolutely hate this spell. I mean, seriously, this spell is essentially just a plot device, one that allows your Dungeon Master to then have your game move from one world to another. Admittedly, this is pretty cool, and I do appreciate the insanely hard limit placed upon it, so you don't have to worry about any of your players just randomly casting it. However, if your Dungeon Master isn't interested in having your game feature any world hopping, then the spell is just going to be completely useless for you. However, if you're a Dungeon Master with some world hopping aspirations, then definitely consider adding the spell to your game. Otherwise, I guess that you could just ignore the spell entirely. And that's it. If you liked the video, then be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you'd like to have the chance to play D&D with me, then feel free to join my Discord server. And consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see all of you in the next video.